The chamber that shattered every species, but the human took a nap inside it. The alarm ripped through the room like a knife made of sound. A brutal metallic howl that clawed into the skull and refused to let go. Ethan Hale's hand shot out, slapping metal again and again until the noise died with a click. Silence returned. Heavy, stale, humming with the spin gravity of the orbiting Academy station. He lay there, chest heaving, the echo still pulsing behind his eyes. 6 months of broken sleep. 6 months of waking to that same alarm. The sheets were damp with sweat, his muscles stiff as rusted gears. He sat up slowly, rubbing his temples. The faint smell of ionized metal filled the air, mixed with disinfectant and recycled oxygen. Across the narrow room, something massive shifted. His roommate, Braca, a Colossian, was stretching. Each movement made the walls complain. Muscles like steel cables bunched beneath purple-gray skin. Braca grinned, a sound like gravel rolling in a drum. "Morning, little human." Ethan groaned. "You call this morning?" "It's always morning somewhere," Braca replied, pressing both hands against the bulkhead until the deck creaked. For him, this was a warm-up. For Ethan, it was another reminder of how fragile he was in this place. He dressed in silence, pulling on the gray cadet uniform. The fabric clung to his skin, designed for Axian physiology, too tight at the shoulders, too loose at the legs. When he stepped into the mess hall, every sound sharpened. Clattering trays, low murmurs, the hum of the food synthesizers. The smell was the same every day, hot metal and processed protein. The gray paste on his plate quivered like it wanted to escape. He forced a spoonful down. It tasted of minerals and regret. Cadets filled the hall, hundreds of species, all stronger, faster, or smarter than him. On the far wall, a towering holographic leaderboard glowed, names and efficiency ratings scrolling endlessly. The top 10 slots were, of course, all Axian. Their elongated limbs and reinforced bones made them perfect for the Academy's harsh training. Humans weren't made for this place. They were here to prove a point, or maybe to fail doing it. A voice rose above the chatter. "The new trial schedule's up." Everyone turned to the big screen. Rows of names flickered into view. Ethan scrolled his personal wrist display, already guessing where he'd land. Near the bottom, he found it. Hale, E. 1,300 hours. Forge Chamber 1. Series, 12 Stress Induction Unit. Duration, 8 hours. A few nearby cadets glanced his way. One gave a sympathetic grimace. Another smirked. This Series, 12 was infamous. They called it the press. Most broke in under 3 hours. Some never returned the same. Ethan exhaled through his nose. 8 hours alone in a box, he muttered. At least it's quiet. Hours later, he stood in the forge, an arena of black metal and humming machinery. The chamber stretched upward, seats tiered like a courtroom for gods. In the center rested the press, a sleek, coffin-shaped pod of matte black composite. It looked harmless. Dean Sillenmar sat in the first row. Pale, precise, every movement calculated. His eyes tracked Ethan as though dissecting him from afar. "Cadet Hale," Mar said, his voice smooth, almost kind. "Our first human candidate for the Series 12. Ready to test your species' limits." "Just ready to finish, sir." A flicker of amusement touched Mar's lips. "Pain is a teacher, cadet. The crucible of progress." He gestured to the pod. "Enter." Technicians moved without words. Cables clipped to his temples. Soft restraints tightened around his wrists. "You may terminate the simulation by speaking the code phrase Red Sigma," one of them said. Ethan nodded. The lid sealed shut with a hiss. Darkness swallowed him whole. Then came the sound, a deep, steady tone, not loud, but everywhere. It vibrated inside his skull, low and constant, like the hum of the universe. He waited for the agony he'd heard about, the hallucinations, the simulated pain, the mental disintegration. But none came. Instead, the pressure behind his eyes faded. The noise became peace, a silence within the sound. His body loosened, the exhaustion slipping off layer by layer. For the first time in half a year, his breathing steadied. The quiet wasn't empty, it was whole. His thoughts blurred. His heartbeat slowed. He fell asleep. 8 hours later, the pod hissed open. Light spilled in, blinding him. 2 technicians stared, pale and rigid. "He's awake," one whispered. He slept through it. Ethan sat up. His joints didn't ache. The fog in his head was gone. On the nearby screen, instead of jagged red spikes of stress, a single blue wave pulsed gently. The words below flickered. Source, unknown. Fault. Recuperative feedback cascade. Above, Dean Mars stood frozen, white-knuckled on the rail. The man who built the unbreakable machine had just watched it fail, and the human inside it had finally found peace. The next morning, the entire station buzzed. Word of the sleeping human spread like fire and oxygen. Every corridor hummed with whispers. A human cadet had outlasted the press. No one believed it. No one wanted to. By midday, the story reached Dean Mars' private office. He stood before a massive screen replaying the footage from the chamber. Ethan's calm face, steady vitals, the peaceful curve of his heartbeat. Mars' thin smile never reached his eyes. Impossible, he whispered. Machines don't lie. Yet the data glowed, cold and clean. When the door slid open, his aide, an Axion junior officer, entered cautiously. Sir, the press logs were triple-checked. There was no malfunction. Mar turned, his pale eyes sharp as glass. Then the error lies elsewhere. He stared at the screen again. The boy's stillness burned into his vision. Prepare a public diagnostic. We'll demonstrate the chamber's integrity and his fragility. By evening, the great forge chamber was full. Hundreds of cadets filled the seats, voices low with anticipation. The press stood gleaming beneath the spotlights. For most, this was spectacle. For Ethan, it was déjà vu. He walked through the aisles, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous room. The weight of 1,000 eyes pressed down on him, heavier than gravity itself. Somewhere near the back row, Braca raised a massive fist in silent support. But one figure watched from the shadows, Neri Ion, a quiet Axion researcher known for her obsession with obsolete data. While others mocked Ethan, she studied. She saw patterns where others saw noise. As Mar began his speech, she tapped commands into a small, flickering tablet. Data overlays shimmered before her eyes, frequency patterns, neurological responses, archived Terran studies buried under, redacted, non-applicable. Then she froze. Her dark pupils dilated. The waveform from the press matched a band of human neural silence, a dead zone in which human senses simply didn't respond. To an Axion, it was torment. To a human, it was peace. On stage, Mar gestured grandly. Yesterday's anomaly will now be clarified. Observe as our human candidate undergoes the same test, this time under full supervision. His tone dripped with pride. Pain, after all, is universal. Neri whispered under her breath. Not for everyone. Ethan stepped forward. Sir, I didn't ask for a crowd. Mar smiled thinly. History rarely asks permission. Technicians sealed him in once more. The lid closed. Darkness. Then the tone, deeper, harsher, layered now with frequencies designed to shatter focus. A shrill hum followed, vibrating every bone. The chamber shook with added chaos, flashing lights, waves of simulated cold and heat, even jolts of electric static. Mar had ordered every modifier activated. From the observation deck, cadets leaned forward. Some flinched as the intensity readings spiked. Mar's expression remained calm, expectant. Inside, Ethan breathed slowly. The deeper tones thrummed, but beneath them, he could still hear it. The same perfect silence. The quiet that waited patiently for him to return. He focused. Inhale. Exhale. The world narrowed to rhythm. When the noise clawed harder, he didn't fight it. He sank beneath it, the way divers sink below stormy waves. His pulse slowed. His muscles uncoiled. The chaos blurred, turning distant, harmless. Minutes turned to hours. Then the readings on Mar's screen began to flatten again, red spikes fading to blue. No, Mar hissed. Increase intensity. The technician hesitated. Sir, it's already at maximum tolerance. Then exceed it. But even as they tried, the machine resisted. The system adjusted automatically, recalibrating to preserve life. The press itself was protecting him. When the pod finally hissed open, Ethan blinked into the light, blinking slowly as if waking from a nap. The silence in the forge was absolute. The crowd stared at him. The fragile human who should have been screaming, convulsing, broken. Instead, he sat upright, calm, centered. Neri watched from the shadows, her chest tight. Her suspicions were confirmed. The Academy's greatest torture device was built on a fatal flaw, a mistake born from arrogance. It wasn't that humans were stronger than the Axians. It was that their minds existed in a different frequency, one that pain couldn't touch. Ethan climbed out of the pod and looked up toward the dean. Mars stood frozen, pale, fists clenched behind his back. "You wanted proof," Ethan said, his voice steady. "There it is." He stepped down from the platform, the crowd parting before him. Behind him, the great screen flickered, one line of text still glowing blue. "System stable." Subject rested. And for the first time in the Academy's long history, silence meant defeat. The following days turned the Academy into a storm of whispers. Every hallway echoed with one question. How could a fragile human sleep through a machine meant to break the strongest Axian warriors? Some said Ethan was a freak mutation. Others claimed he had sabotaged the device. The most devout believers in Dean Mars' methods called it blasphemy, the idea that pain could fail as a teacher. Ethan tried to ignore them all. He spent his mornings in the mess hall, staring into his bowl of gray protein paste while hundreds of curious eyes burned holes through his back. The taste hadn't changed, but something inside him had. The endless pressure behind his eyes, the constant fog that had haunted his thoughts, was gone. The world felt sharper now, quieter. Braca slammed his tray beside him with a grin. "You slept in the monster's belly and came out smiling. You're a legend, little man." "I just didn't hear what they hear," Ethan muttered. "It wasn't pain. It was peace." "Peace." Braca barked a laugh, so loud a few cadets turned. "In the press." Before Ethan could answer, a soft voice cut through the noise. "He's correct." Neri Ion stood behind them, thin and still, her eyes glimmering faintly under the hall's cold light. Other cadets quieted as she approached. Neri was strange even by Axian standards, a systems analyst who spoke in data streams and didn't blink enough. "You again," Braca grunted. "The one who watches people like puzzles." Neri ignored him. She set a small holographic projector on the table. It flickered to life, showing two waveforms side by side, one jagged and red, one smooth and blue. "This," she said, pointing to the red peaks, "is how the press affects Axian neural frequencies. Chaos, pain, overload." She shifted her finger to the blue line. "And this is human response. Nothing. A null band. The chamber's torture frequency does not reach your nervous system at all." Ethan stared. "So, I was just in the wrong kind of pain machine." "In the right kind," Neri corrected. "For you, the press becomes a meditation chamber. For them, it's torment." Braca leaned in, squinting. "You're saying humans are broken?" Neri tilted her head, a gesture that looked almost mechanical. "Not broken. Different. Where we resist pain, humans dissolve it. You yield. You recover. You adapt faster than the system can punish you." Ethan frowned, thinking, "That's not strength. That's survival." "Survival," Neri said softly, "is the foundation of strength." She looked around the hall, the watching faces, the silent disbelief. Dean Mars' philosophy is built on resistance. To endure, to fight through pain, to never yield. But there is another path, recovery. The body's natural return to balance. Your biology does this instinctively. If it can be trained, it can be weaponized. Braca grinned wide. "A human secret weapon, naps and deep breaths?" Ethan gave a quiet chuckle, but his mind was racing. Months of sleepless nights, endless exhaustion, and yet one accidental experiment had unlocked something none of them understood. That evening, Neri led Ethan through the unused maintenance corridors below the forge. Dust and silence filled the air. In a forgotten lab, she activated an old projector, casting pale blue light on cracked walls. "These archives belong to my mentor," she said. "He once suggested that Mars' methods were limited, that the body can grow stronger not by breaking, but by learning to rebuild." "What happened to him?" Ethan asked. "He was dismissed, labeled defective." She turned to him, eyes bright like stars trapped in glass. "Help me prove he was right." Ethan hesitated. "I'm just one tired human." "That is exactly why you're perfect," Neri replied. "You understand fatigue better than any of us. You live in recovery." Over the next weeks, they worked in secret. She wired old simulators and recalibrated training modules. Ethan tested breathing patterns, heart rate control, and micro-rest cycles. Every time the machines pushed him toward exhaustion, he focused on that silent center he'd found inside the press. He'd let the chaos pass over him, drop into calm, and reset faster each time. Neri collected data obsessively. "You're rewriting stress itself," she said one night, watching blue waves dance across the screen. "Where Axions build walls, you open doors." Braca eventually joined them, curious and stubborn. Others followed, cadets discarded by Mars' system, species too fragile or too strange to fit his definition of strength. Together they practiced what Neri named the pulse doctrine, short bursts of intensity followed by deliberate recovery cycles. Action and stillness and rhythm. Word of their midnight sessions spread quietly. Some laughed, calling it the sleep cult. But others began to wonder. And deep inside the Academy's data network, the system logs started showing strange anomalies, training pods that reported lower stress, higher output, faster recovery. Mars' empire was built on the science of breaking. But in the silence of forgotten halls, something new was being born, a rebellion that healed instead of shattered. The first quiet revolution in the history of pain. By the start of the new training cycle, the Academy was divided. Half whispered that the human anomaly was a glitch, a fluke that would fade once Dean Marr corrected the system. The other half, mostly the tired and the broken, began to hope that maybe strength didn't always have to hurt. Ethan Hale didn't care about either side. He just wanted to sleep without being watched. But fame had a way of clinging. His experiment with Neri Ion, the quiet, forbidden pulse doctrine, had started turning results. Cadets who trained under her strange breathing rhythms showed faster recovery, calmer focus, better precision. They didn't burn out, they adapted. That was when Marr made his move. One morning, the mess hall's main screen flickered alive. The dean's pale, elegant face filled the projection. "To promote unity and fair evaluation among all species," he announced, "we will hold a public challenge, the Gravity Labyrinth. A test of strength, focus, and endurance." He paused, his lips curving slightly. "Our top student, Cadet Kesh, will compete against Cadet Hale of Earth." A silence rolled across the hall like thunder. Braca's fork froze halfway to his mouth. "You're joking. The labyrinth? That's not a test. That's a death trap." Ethan looked up at the screen. Marr was smiling, but his eyes were cold glass. Later that day, Neri stormed into the underground lab, her translucent tendrils twitching with agitation. "He's setting you up," she said flatly. "The labyrinth uses fluctuating gravity fields. It will crush you if you move wrong. Your body can't handle high-G density for more than a minute." "Then I'll move differently," Ethan replied. Neri blinked, confused. "Differently? Not against it," he said. "With it." For 3 days, they trained. Neri projected schematics of the labyrinth, long tunnels of shifting light and magnetized steel. The gravity pulses would come in waves, sometimes tripling, sometimes vanishing altogether. Most cadets survived by brute force, tightening muscles, locking joints, resisting the crush. Ethan practiced something else. He let the pulses move through him. When gravity increased, he slowed, softened his steps, let his weight become part of the pull. When it dropped, he flowed forward, using the lightness to glide. He moved like a tide, not a rock. Braca watched, shaking his head. "You don't fight the field," he muttered. "You dance with it." Ethan smiled faintly. Exactly. The day of the challenge arrived. The arena was enormous, a transparent maze suspended above a pit of glowing plasma. Every spectator could see everything. The corridors, the obstacles, the competitors, every struggle. Marr sat in the high observation deck, surrounded by military officials and other deans from the allied academies. 2 doors opened on opposite sides of the maze. On one side, Kesh, tall and flawless, flexed his 4-jointed arms, each motion fluid as a predator's. On the other, Ethan adjusted the straps of his suit, feeling the hum of magnetic plates under his boots. When the horn blared, Kesh shot forward like a missile. His Axion physiology thrived in the high-G zones. Muscles bulged, veins lit blue from oxygen pumps. He tore through the maze's first corridor in seconds. Ethan moved slower. Each step measured, deliberate. The first gravity pulse hit like a falling building. His bones screamed, but he remembered Neri's voice. "Breathe. Yield. Let the wave pass." He inhaled, exhaled. The weight became part of him. Then the pulse dropped, and he used that instant of lightness to surge forward, covering twice as much ground with half the energy. Up in the stands, Marr leaned forward, watching the biometric data streams. Kesh's vitals glowed red. Pulse 180, cortisol spike critical. Ethan's remained blue, steady as ocean rhythm. By the halfway mark, Kesh led by several corridors. The audience cheered his every leap. But as the pulses grew more erratic, his speed faltered. His breathing turned ragged. His extra joints twitched uncontrollably under strain. Meanwhile, Ethan fell into a trance-like rhythm. Step, pause, breathe, move. In each low-gravity pocket, he stopped for just 2 seconds, centering his breath, resetting. To the crowd, it looked like hesitation. To Neri, watching from the sidelines, it was brilliance. He's turning recovery into motion, she whispered. When they reached the final chamber, the floor tilted. A puzzle of luminous panels flickered ahead, circuits that had to be reconnected under time pressure. Kesh reached first, his hands trembling. Sweat dripped onto the controls. He misaligned the first wire, cursed, and forced another connection. The circuit shorted, penalizing him 5 seconds. Ethan arrived moments later. He didn't rush. He stood still, breathing once, twice, the same rhythm that had saved him in the press. His hands steadied. The world narrowed to motion and silence. He worked the puzzle in 21 seconds flat. A green light flashed overhead. The arena erupted. Kesh stared in disbelief, still panting. Mar's expression froze into something unreadable, half fury, half disbelief. The display above their heads announced the result. Victory, Cadet Hale, human. Bracca's roar shook the stands. He did it. The sleeper beat the storm. Neri didn't cheer. She just watched the blue waveform glowing beside Ethan's name. Steady, calm, unbroken. Dean Mar turned away from the screen, face pale as ice. The man who preached that strength was born from pain had just watched recovery win the day. And deep inside the data vaults, where Neri's hidden sensors logged every reading, the system flagged a new entry. Category created, resilience response. The Academy's foundations had cracked, and it started with one human who refused to fight gravity. The next morning, the Academy shimmered with tension. The victory at the Gravity Labyrinth had become legend overnight, a story told in every corridor, in every whisper. For the first time in decades, a human had beaten the system. But beneath the applause, a quiet anger brewed. Dean Mar watched the replay in his dark office, hands clasped behind his back. The blue wave of Ethan's calm vitals glowed on the holoscreen, mocking him. He had built the Academy's philosophy on pain, on the belief that true strength came only from resistance. And one human had broken that foundation with rest. He turned to his aide. Prepare the next simulation. Privately. If Cadet Hale wants to test endurance, he'll have it. Meanwhile, in the dim light of the archives, Neri Ion worked alone. Streams of code and neurodata filled the air like floating constellations. She traced every record from the Gravity Labyrinth, every biometric spike. Something felt off. The system had registered hidden background interference, faint chemical markers in the airflow that didn't belong. She froze when she found the signature, neurotoxin traces. The same pattern appeared in a restricted file labeled Project M Serum. Her pulse quickened. She had seen that formula once. A prototype nerve agent designed to paralyze human musculature without harming axions. Her terminal beeped. A message flashed from an encrypted source. He will be tested again. This time, he won't wake up. She didn't hesitate. She stormed out of the archives and found Ethan in the training deck, running breath control drills. Stop, she said sharply. Mar intends to poison you. Ethan blinked, still breathing in rhythm. You're serious? She threw a small data chip on the bench. Serum M, a muscle-lock toxin, targets human neuroreceptors. He'll release it during the next combat sim. Bracca, nearby, clenched his fists. We'll tear that snake apart. No, Ethan cut him off. If we expose him without proof, he'll bury it. We need to survive it first. Neri hesitated. There's no antidote. Not in time. Then give me something to fight through it. Ethan said, voice calm but eyes burning. She calculated quickly, her mind a storm of logic and risk. There is one method. She projected a chemical diagram in the air. Controlled hyperventilation combined with metabolic accelerants. You'll burn the toxin out, but it will shred your system. You'll rupture vessels, maybe lose consciousness. It's suicide through stamina. Ethan gave a dry smile. Sounds like most of my mornings here. That night, She prepared a viscous drink of gold and blue, a nutrient catalyst. Drink it an hour before the trial, she instructed. Then breathe like we practiced. No matter what happens, don't stop. Your lungs are your only weapon. When the next day came, the combat simulation chamber gleamed like a battlefield waiting for blood. Two pods faced each other across the stage, Ethan's and Kesh's. Mars sat above them, smiling faintly, his fingers folded. This simulation will measure tactical efficiency and speed, he said smoothly. Begin when ready. Ethan sealed himself in. The pod hissed. Artificial rain began to fall, cold and metallic. Neon city streets flickered into life. Holographic buildings, enemies, targets, hostages. Then, within moments, the toxin hit. His muscles locked. His knees buckled. The world froze around him. His mind screamed orders his body couldn't obey. He dropped to the ground, gasping. Neri's voice crackled softly through his earpiece. It's begun. Breathe, Ethan. Sequence Alpha. Now. He focused on her voice, the single sound in the storm. Inhale. Exhale. Fast. Deep. Hard. The air burned through him like fire. His heart thundered against his ribs. The pain was savage, but somewhere deep inside, something shifted. A twitch in his hand. A spark in his leg. He forced his body upright, trembling violently. His vision blurred. Every breath felt like inhaling knives. But he moved, step by step. Above, Mar leaned forward, eyes wide. Impossible. In the parallel chamber, Kesh raced ahead, but his performance wavered, his reaction slower, his precision off. The serum's ambient presence affected him too, though less intensely. Ethan stumbled through the simulation, fighting gravity, pain, and poison. At the last objective, a hostage extraction, his arm refused to lift. He bit down, growling through clenched teeth, forcing motion through agony. The timer blared. The mission completed. Kesh's pod opened first. He stood panting, confused, his scoreboard glowing red with penalties. He had shot a civilian hologram by mistake. Then Ethan's pod hissed open. He collapsed onto the floor, nose bleeding, body shaking, but breathing. Alive. The crowd was silent. Mar's smile had vanished. As medtechs rushed in, Neri met Ethan's eyes across the room. He managed a weak grin. Told you. I'd breathe through it. And somewhere deep inside the Academy's sealed servers, an alert blinked. Unauthorized data access. Source. Ion. Neri. The clock had started ticking. 72 hours until the truth broke free. For 3 days, the Academy whispered about nothing else. The human who wouldn't break. The boy who breathed through poison. Cadets from a dozen worlds peeked into the medbay windows just to glimpse him. Some with awe, some with fear, others with quiet resentment, because every victory of his was a direct insult to the system that defined their lives. Dean Mar, however, said nothing. He vanished into silence. Until the fourth morning. Ethan awoke to find a formal summons hovering above his bed. Dean's office. 0800 sharp. Braca grunted when he saw it. He's not done with you. Ethan smiled faintly. Neither am I. The dean's chamber was a monument to order. Polished petrified wood desk, geometric lamps, and walls made of smart glass that shifted from clear to dark at a thought. Mar stood by the window, hands folded behind his back, watching the sunrise curve across the planet below. Cadet Hale, he said softly. You've become quite the sensation. Ethan didn't reply. Mar turned, his thin lips curling in something almost like warmth. You've demonstrated creativity, composure, even grace under pressure. Qualities I did not expect from your species. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Ethan remained standing. The dean continued anyway. You've proven your method has merit. The board has noticed. They see value in integrating it. Under supervision, of course. I can offer you a position here. A research grant. Tenure after graduation. You'd lead a small department. Develop your techniques as a supplementary discipline to my system. He smiled, but it was the smile of a blade. All I require is acknowledgement that your results build upon the Mar doctrine. Strength through pain remains the foundation. Recovery, merely the accessory. Ethan's jaw tightened. You want me to sign my name under yours? I want order restored, Mar replied calmly. The Academy cannot survive chaos. If every cadet believes there's a shortcut around suffering, we'll breed weakness. You and I can keep them balanced, teacher and student, master and successor. Silence stretched. The hum of the room filled the space between them. Finally, Ethan said, "You teach people to endure pain until they break. I teach them to heal so they can keep standing." "Those aren't the same thing, sir." The dean's eyes cooled to stone. "Think carefully before refusing me. Defiance looks noble until you realize who writes history." "I'm not here for your history," Ethan said quietly. "I'm here to rewrite it." The air turned heavy. For a heartbeat, Mars' composure cracked. "Then you've chosen war," he whispered. He tapped a command into his console. A new announcement flashed across every screen in the academy. Mandate Gauntlet announced. Lead instructor, Dean Silen Mar. Competitors, Team Mar versus Team Hale. Ethan felt his stomach twist. The Mandate Gauntlet wasn't a training exercise, it was legend. The most advanced combat simulation in the known systems, reserved for elite final year squads. Multi-environment, full sensory immersion, real-time physics. No safety overrides. Mar's voice rang out through the academy speakers. Cadet Hale's unorthodox methods have raised questions about our traditions. The Gauntlet will provide the answer. His team versus mine. If they prevail, his pulse doctrine will be formally recognized. If they fail, his teachings will be erased, and all involved will be expelled. He paused for effect. The parameters have been customized using Hale's own data. Every known weakness, physiological and psychological, has been incorporated. Let us see how recovery functions under constant pressure. By noon, the academy was alive with energy. Bets were made. Cadets whispered of sabotage, of glory, of humiliation. Back in the underground lab, Neri moved faster than ever. Code streamed around her like a digital storm. "He's building the arena from your metrics," she said, voice sharp. "Your heart rate patterns, stress thresholds, even your reaction times. He's turning your biology into a trap." Braca cracked his knuckles. "Then we'll break his trap." Ethan looked at the blueprint. Not by breaking, by breathing. They formed a squad, 12 cadets who had trained in Neri's methods. Braca, the unstoppable Colossian hammer. Zyra, the Ilarian scout who could vanish between pulses of motion. Vash, the Carthan defender whose body could absorb punishment like armor. Each had been deemed defective under Mars' system. Now, they were his team. Neri stood before them, her translucent tendrils trembling with focus. The Mar doctrine is constant output. It assumes endless endurance. Our strength is rhythm. Action, withdrawal, recovery. We strike in pulses. She looked at each of them. When one breaks, another breathes. When one falls, another recovers. For weeks, they trained in abandoned cargo bays. Simulators overloaded. Gravity fields pulsed like heartbeats. Ethan drilled them in controlled chaos. Bursts of violence followed by moments of stillness. One night, after a brutal session, Neri found him alone, staring at a flickering map of the gauntlet. "Your vitals are elevated," she said softly. "You haven't rested." "I can't," Ethan murmured. "He's planning something bigger." "You're correct," she said, voice almost a whisper. "I found a flaw in his system. During live operation, the gauntlet's network runs at maximum load. Its security layers weaken. There's a brief window, seconds, not minutes, when we can inject data directly into the central server." Ethan looked up. "To do what?" "Show the truth," Neri replied. "Every suppressed file, every poisoned cadet, every broken life he erased. But we'll only get one chance." Ethan studied the glowing maze of the gauntlet projection. "Then we'll win first," he said quietly. "And when the world's watching, you pull the trigger." Neri tilted her head, analyzing his face. "Statistically, your odds of survival are less than." "Don't tell me the number," he interrupted with a faint smile. "Humans like surprises." Outside, the academy lights dimmed into night mode. Above them, Mar stood in his glass office, staring down at the training grounds. "The moment he steps into my arena," Mar whispered to himself, "I'll show the universe what happens when weakness pretends to be strength." But in the quiet below, Ethan Hale and his team were building something Mar had never understood. Not resistance, resilience. The morning of the Mandate Gauntlet felt like standing at the edge of a war. Every corridor in the academy pulsed with electric silence. Hollow banners streamed the event live across allied systems. Mar Industries presents the final test. In the locker bay, Ethan Hale stood with his squad, 12 cadets from 6 species once branded as unfit. Their armor gleamed with mismatched plating and field repairs, but their breathing was steady, synchronized. The rhythm they had built together, inhale, exhale, anchor, hummed like a single heartbeat. Braca pounded his chest with a grin. We ready to make history or die trying? Preferably the first one, Zyra muttered, tightening her gloves. Neri Ion stood by the console, her tendrils flickering with faint light as she synced their vitals to her data slate. Remember, she said, her tone mechanical but her eyes strangely human. Mars' doctrine assumes continuous output. Ours relies on recovery cycles. Strike fast. Rest smart. Pulse like a living system. Ethan nodded. And when we reach the control node? Her gaze met his. I'll be waiting for the upload window. You win. I expose everything. He smiled faintly. Then let's give the galaxy a reason to look. The gauntlet loaded around them like a living nightmare. A dense, alien jungle shimmered into being, its vines dripping with phosphorescent liquid. The air was thick with humidity and static charge. Gravity surged, then dropped, then slammed again. The terrain itself was the weapon. From the far ridge, Mars' champion team, led by Kesh, opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the trees, searing bark and vaporizing leaves. From the far ridge, Mars' champion team, led by Kesh, opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the trees, searing bark and vaporizing leaves. Anchor, Ethan shouted. His squad pressed against the roots, grounding themselves, breathing through the first impact wave. When the pulse passed, they rose as one. Pulse. Braca exploded forward like a cannonball, smashing through enemy cover. Zyra darted between trees, a blur of silver and motion. Vash shielded two smaller cadets with his dense armor plates, absorbing an entire volley. Then, as the next gravity spike hit, they fell back, recovering, recalibrating. To the audience, it looked chaotic. To Neri's monitor, it was poetry. The data stream formed a perfect rhythm: energy spike, drop, recovery. Mars' team, by contrast, burned bright and fast, their vitals screaming red. Maintain the rhythm, Neri whispered into the mic. You're rewriting combat itself. But Mar was watching too, his face pale and sharp. Increase the pressure, he commanded the technicians. The arena shifted. The ground cracked, opening a canyon filled with glowing green fog, the same neurotoxin gas used in Ethan's earlier trial. High above, drones released micro-explosives that simulated constant artillery. The crowd gasped. Even the other deans exchanged uneasy glances. Mar didn't care. Let's see recovery without rest. Inside the canyon, Ethan's team coughed, blinded by the haze. Emergency O2, he ordered. Breathing sequence, pattern 2. They sealed helmets, synced breaths. Their movements slowed, deliberate, patient, while Kesh's squad charged recklessly through the smoke. Wait, Ethan whispered. Then, as the toxin began affecting their opponents, he struck. Pulse. Braca roared, swinging his plasma hammer into the canyon wall, sending a rain of debris that trapped two Axian cadets beneath. Zyra weaved through the chaos, tagging Kesh's flank sensors. Vash advanced behind her like a walking fortress. But Mar had one final trick. The entire environment reconfigured, shifting into a cityscape of steel and neon. Artificial thunder rolled across digital clouds. The temperature spiked, energy fields distorted. The final phase, Neri muttered, eyes darting over code. The system's at max load, now or never. She inserted the data chip. Lines of hidden code unraveled, like locked doors bursting open. Suppressed archives spilled across her screen. Recordings, toxicology reports, cadet medical files marked, terminated for incompatibility. Ethan's breathing filled her headset. You in? Uploading, she said. Hold them for 30 seconds. 30 seconds of chaos. 30 seconds of war. Kesh came for him, face twisted with rage. You think you can undo centuries of perfection? Ethan dodged, barely. His body screamed with exhaustion. Gravity pulsed again, heavier than before. The world slowed. He remembered Neri's first lesson. You can't fight the storm. You breathe through it. He exhaled. Let the weight pass through him. And when Kesh lunged again, Ethan dropped low, swept the legs, and drove him down. The training knife pressed against Kesh's chest plate. A blinding flash tore through the arena. Every screen in the academy, every viewer across the system, froze, then flooded with data. Footage of Mars experiments. His suppressed failures. His toxin tests. His discarded cadets. Decades of deceit illuminated in cold, undeniable light. Gasps echoed from the stands. Oversight officials stood from their seats. Mars' composure shattered. He lunged for his console, but the command denied him. Access revoked. Public file verified. Ethan looked up at him through the virtual haze. You built an empire on breaking people. Maybe now it's time to see what healing looks like. The simulation shut down. Silence. Then, thunderous applause. Weeks later, the Forge bore a new name, the Resilience Center. The infamous press chamber remained, but now it was a sanctuary. Cadets lined up to use it, not for pain endurance, but for recovery training. They called the practice the Pulse Method. Ethan stood at the front of the hall, dressed in new instructor gray. His voice carried steady across the crowd of mixed species. Strength, he said, isn't about how much pain you can take. It's about how well you come back from it. You don't win by fighting forever. You win by learning when to breathe. He smiled, glancing at Neri beside the console. Her tendrils flickered faintly, approval, or maybe pride. Today, he said, gesturing to the sleek black pods, we begin a new kind of training. One that doesn't break you to make you stronger. He paused, eyes soft with memory. Let's start, Ethan Hale said. I'm going to teach you all how to rest. The lights dimmed. The machines hummed. And somewhere beyond the academy, across the stars, an encrypted transmission pulsed from Neri's terminal, a signal to unknown coordinates. Human nullband detected, requesting further study. A pause, then a reply. We hear you. The stars blinked once, and the galaxy quietly woke up.